Today we're going to be talking about perimeter of irregular figures. These are figures that are not standard shapes, such as triangles, rectangles, and squares. Perimeter measures the distance around the outside of a figure. So let's take a look at the first example. So example A says fencing costs about $15.30 per meter. How much will it cost to put a fence around this garden? So just like in real life, most things are not standard shapes. So I have a garden here and it's not a regular shape. So to find the perimeter, I need to find the distance around the outside. But I have a small problem. I'm missing some of the sides of my garden. So I'm missing these two top sections here. I'm missing these two side sections here. And I'm missing this far side here. So since I'm missing these sides of the garden, I have to figure out what they are first before I can add up all the sides, because that's what perimeter is. It's just adding up all of the sides of the shape to determine the distance around the outside. So some of them are real easy. For example, I've got 11.5 over here, and that's on one side. If this is equal, which it appears it is, then I know that 11.5 is going to be the same on the other side. So that's easy enough. The next one that I have is I have to figure out these two missing sides here at the top. So to figure out these two missing sides at the top, I have to look around for information in the problem that can help me. So one of the things that can help me is I've got 14.8 on the bottom, and that tells me the entire distance across the bottom. 10 tells me the entire distance from this side to this side. So all I need to do is figure out how much extra is between the 14.8 and the two top sides here. So to do that, I'm going to just do some subtraction. So I'm going to take 14.8 minus 10, and that's going to leave me with 4.8. But I'm not just finding one missing side, I'm finding two missing sides. So I'm going to have to divide that 4.8 by 2. When I do that, I get 2.4. So I know that each of those sides is 2.4 meters. All right, so I figured out the two top sections are 2.4. So now I have to move on to the next thing, which is figuring out these two sides next to the tops. So again, I'm going to look around the problem and see if there's something that can help me. So what I can see is one of the entire sides is 11.5. That's what I found earlier. And this middle section here tells me that it's 7 for just this part of the shape. So now I can use that information to figure out what's left, and that will tell me the missing part. So I'm going to do some subtraction again. I've got 11.5. I'm going to subtract 7 because that's the section in the middle, and I'm going to end up with 4.5. So I know that each one of these sections is 4.5. Because if it's 4.5 plus 7 here gives me 11.5, 4.5 plus 7 over here will also give me 11.5. So now that I've figured out all the different sections of my problem, I'm going to just add them up so I can figure out the total perimeter. So I'm going to list all the sides that I'm adding. So I'm adding two 11.5s, two 2.4s, two 4.5s, the 10, and the 14.8. Now why am I not adding the 7? Although the 7's a number in the problem, it's not part of the perimeter. It's not around the outside of the shape. And since I'm only adding up the things around the outside, I'm not going to include that 7. So I'm going to add them all together, and when I do that, I get 61.6. But the problem doesn't ask me what is the perimeter of this garden. It tells me that we're going to be putting fencing around this garden. The fencing costs $15.30 per meter. So how much will it cost to put the fence around this garden? So I'm going to take the 61.6 meters, multiply it by the $15.30 per meter, and when I do that, it will tell me the total amount I'm going to cost for fencing is $942.48. And that's what I'm looking for my answer. So to answer my problem, I can't just stop at finding the perimeter. I have to make sure that I complete the problem, and in this case, the problem asked me to find how much the fencing costs. So it's important to understand and read the question to know what it's asking. All right, let's take a look at the next one. Okay, let's take a look at example B. Example B says this room is composed of a square with an isosceles triangle. That's important information to know, that the shape is made up of a square and an isosceles triangle adjacent to it. What is the distance around the room? And then a second question says, each roll of wallpaper border covers 25 feet. How many rolls are needed to go around the room one time? So first we got to figure out how much distance is around the room, and then we've got to figure out how much wallpaper we're going to need. So here I don't have very much to work with. I only have 23.5 feet and 19 3/4 feet. But luckily, the problem gave me some information to work with. So it tells me that I have a square. And since I know squares have equal sides, I know that all the sides of my square can be 23.5 feet. So this side is 23.5 feet, and this side is 23.5 feet, because all squares have equal sides. Now, an isosceles triangle is a triangle where two sides are equal and one side is not. So the two sides that are equal are across from each other. So 19 3/4 feet is also going to be 19 3/4 feet. So now So the only things I could use to help solve this problem was the information from the problem. So it's very important to read, because it told me that this shape was a square attached to an isosceles triangle. And knowing that, I was able to use that information to complete the rest of the problem. So now I'm going to add up all the sides to figure out the perimeter. So I've got my 23.5, 23.5, 23.5, and 19.75, 19.75. So I'm going to add those all up. And when I do that, I get 110 feet. So that answers one of the problems, asking me what the distance around the room is. But the other problem was, if I have wallpaper that covers 25 feet, how many rolls am I going to need? So I'm going to take the 110 feet that I have, I'm going to divide that by 25, because it covers 25 feet in each roll. When I do that, I end up with 4.4. But I can't buy 4.4 rolls of wallpaper. They don't sell them like that. You can only buy single rolls. If I buy 4 rolls, that won't be enough, because 0.4 will still not be covered. So I must purchase 5 rolls of wallpaper in order to cover the entire wall. Let's take a look at the next one. Let's take a look at example C. Example C says this figure is composed of an equilateral triangle, a rectangle, and a semicircle. What is the distance around the figure? So again, they've given me some important information in my problem that will help me. I have an equilateral triangle, I have a rectangle, and I have a semicircle. So these are important things that they're telling me in my problem that will help me figure out some of the answers. So let's start by figuring out what each of the sections are that I'm missing. So I'm going to start with the rectangle, because that's pretty easy. One side of the rectangle is 9, so the other side of the rectangle is going to be 9. Okay. Now let's work with our equilateral triangle. I know our equilateral triangle is the same on all sides, so it's going to be 6 on each side of my triangle. All right, good news. But my problem is that I now have to figure out my semicircle over here on the far right. So how can I figure out what my semicircle is? Well, it's not like I can just add up a side and there's no information that they gave me. The only thing I know about semicircle is it's not really called perimeter, it's called circumference. And if I look at my formula sheet, I have a formula for that, but for a full circle. For a full circle, it's circumference equals pi times d, or pi times the diameter. I don't have the diameter here right now, but I also don't have a full circle right now. I have a semicircle, or half of a circle. So I'm going to need to fix my formula so that it's for half a circle. So half this circle, all I would have to do is divide by 2. So my new formula that I'm going to use is circumference equals pi times the diameter divided by 2. And that will be for a semicircle. It would be a good idea to write this formula on your formula sheet so that you have it every time that you run into a semicircle going forward in your notes. If you write it on your formula sheet, you can use it on the test. If you don't write it on your formula sheet, it won't be on your formula sheet when you go to take the test. So I highly recommend you copy this formula down now. Okay, let's take a look at how we can figure out what our diameter is going to be. Well, the problem told me that it was an equilateral triangle. So if it's an equilateral triangle, it's the same on all sides. So if it was 6 on the top and 6 on the bottom, it would also be 6 on the third side of the triangle. And if it's 6 here, since this is a rectangle in the middle, I know it's a rectangle in the middle, then both these shorter sides are going to have to be equal. So if both shorter sides are equal, then this is also 6. And since this is 6 and it's attached to my semicircle, it's my diameter. So my diameter is 6. So all I have to do is plug that into my formula. So I'm going to plug in 3.14 for pi because I always use 3.14. I never use the pi button. So 3.14, plug in the 6 for my diameter, and again, I'm going to divide everything by 2. I'm going to use the order of operations. I'm going to multiply across the top first. When I do that, I get 18.84 divided by 2. And then I'm going to divide by 2 and get the circumference is equal to 9.42. Excellent. So now I figured out all of my sides. However, that's not what I had to do. I had to figure out the distance around my shape. So I'm going to take all of my things that I have to add together. So I'm adding 2 9s, 2 6s, and the 9.42 for the circumference. Remember, do not add the 6s in the middle. We're only talking about the perimeters, which means we're only talking around about the outside of our shape. So 9 plus 9, 6 plus 6, plus 9.42. When I do that, I end up with 39.42 inches. Always remember to label your answer. Let's take a look at the last one. Example D says the park has a sidewalk that is 4 meters wide around each side. What is the perimeter of the grassy area? So we're trying to figure out what the perimeter is on the inside of our shape. Okay, just the grassy area. And we know that there's a 4-meter zone along each side, and that's the sidewalk. So we have to figure out how much each of the shapes are on the inside so we can add them together. Well, good news. If I know that there's one shape along the bottom, or one measurement along the bottom, is 78.5. So that 78.5 goes all the way across. But I only want to cover up to here for the grassy area. So I know the sidewalk is on each side, and the sidewalk is 4 meters. So if it's 4 meters on both sides, I know I can take my 78.5, subtract 4 for one side of the sidewalk, subtract 4 for the other side of the sidewalk, and when I do that, I end up with 70.5. So if I know that this is 70.5, then I know the long side of my garden is 70.5. I can apply the same principle on the opposite shorter side. So this side is 37.4. But again, I want to stop here where the sidewalk is going to, or where the grassy area is. So again, I know the sidewalk is 4 meters on each side. So I'm going to take my 37.4 minus 4 for one side of the sidewalk, minus 4 for the other side of the sidewalk. And when I do that, I end up with 29.4. So if I know this is 29.4, this is 29.4. So now I can add them up because I have each side of the long side is 70.5, each side of the short side is 29.4. So when I do that, I've got 70.5, 70.5, 29.4, 29.4. I'm going to add them all together. And when I do that, I get 199.8 meters. Remember to label your answer. This brings us to the end of this video. So if you like this video, go ahead and throw us a thumbs up. If you love this video, go ahead and throw us a sub, and we will catch you in the next one.